I'm Jimmy Turner, a practicing academic anesthesiologist and the founder of both The Physician Philosopher and Money Meets Medicine. And I wasn't even through the end of my intern year in anesthesia when I made the largest financial mistake of my life when I was denied disability insurance. And without what I'm about to teach you, you might make the same mistake, and I don't want that. My story started when my wife Kristen and I had our first kid. And as new parents, we decided to be responsible by getting life insurance in case something happened to either or both of us so that our little girl would be taken care of. The problem was that I knew absolutely nothing about personal finance at the time. And that's when a classmate of mine from medical school introduced me to his brother, who is an insurance agent. And I figured, great, this is someone that I can trust. Unfortunately, there's no Hippocratic oath in the insurance world, and my best interests were not at the forefront. At the time, I'd been diagnosed with an essential tremor. I took propranolol. I also had another couple of medical problems on my chart. And so when the agent put me through what is called a fully underwritten insurance process, one where they look into every nook and cranny of my medical history, I ended up getting denied. At the time, I thought it was probably not that big a deal. I'll just get disability insurance later. But I couldn't have been more wrong. To this day, I can't get disability insurance because of that denial. The reason why is because the kind of policy that I was put through included my entire medical history. And what this agent didn't tell me was that I would have what is called a guaranteed standard issue policy available to me in training, one that would have provided the right type of coverage but would not have looked into my medical history. For a GSI, it is called guaranteed, a guaranteed standard issue policy, because so long as I hadn't been disabled or I hadn't been denied, I could have gotten it. So since I got denied when my classmate's brother had me apply, despite my medical history, the GSI was now off limits. I was denied, which meant I could no longer get disability insurance of any kind. And this is potentially catastrophic. Now, you might be wondering why. Well, it's true because even if you know everything about personal finance, from investing to paying down debt like student loans, if you lose your income, none of that matters. There's no money to invest or pay down debt. This is why disability insurance is your number one financial task as a physician. Without an income, none of that other personal finance stuff matters. You can't invest, you can't pay down debt without an income. And that's why I'm going to teach you exactly how to go about getting disability insurance so what happened to me doesn't happen to you. All right, so I'm just going to jump right in. This is the exact process that we recommend at Money Meets Medicine. Why? Because this is the process that would have prevented what happened to me happening to you, and we'll make sure that you get the disability coverage that you need. So if you wanted to stop here, this is the money slide. It'll teach you everything that you need to know in terms of the steps in the process. But I want to arm you with all the information you need to really understand this process and to understand the information that's on your screen. So we're going to talk about the rest of it so that you know exactly how to go through this process too. The most important aspect of any disability insurance policy is that it is what is called own occupation disability. What this means is that if you were unable to perform the exact job you were doing when you got disabled, you're going to get covered. In other words, if you were a proceduralist and you lose the ability to use your arm, say that you're in a terrible car accident, something happens, you have an orthopedic injury, you can no longer use your arm, you're going to be covered even if you can still do clinic. You can't do procedures, that's part of your job. It is part of the material and substantial duties of your occupation. So if you can no longer do that, then you're considered disabled and you'll get paid for that disability. Now, you may be saying to yourself, but Jimmy, doesn't my residency program have a disability policy, or maybe you have one of those policies from a large medical association? The trouble is that this is what is called a group disability policy. And while these are a really good foundation, they aren't sufficient. You might be asking why. Well, the big reason is because they are not a policy that is individually owned by you, which is the other kind of disability insurance policy that you can get. This matters because in a group policy, it is owned by your employer or the association where you have that policy. You do not own it. This means that if your hospital gets rid of it because it costs too much or you leave that institution after residency, you no longer have that disability policy available to you. It can be canceled at any time. And most importantly, these policies are very rarely that own occupation definition I just showed you, which is what I just told you is the most important aspect of a disability policy for physicians. These group policies often deduct any income from other sources before they ever consider paying you. And if you can work in other occupations or other areas in medicine, they may ask you to do that, even if you can't perform those procedures we just talked about before. So an own occupation definition is fundamental to your protection, and these group policies often don't provide that. So you don't own it, the disability definition is not as good, the policy can get canceled because it's a benefit at any time, and that outside income you might earn could count against you should you become disabled. Now, an individual policy, on the other hand, is just like it sounds. It's individually owned by you. And with these non-cancelable policies, because that's the kind you should get, non-cancelable, guaranteed renewal, so long as you make your monthly payments, they don't go away. They are yours. You own them. And importantly, they are also own occupation in nature, and they come with you should you ever leave your current job. Unlike a group policy, which is not portable, it does not come with you should you leave that job. Now, in order to understand the process I briefly showed you earlier on that initial slide, we got to take a minute to go through this. It's important to know that there are two different kinds of individual policies. So you've got group policies and individual policies, and then that individual policy can be broken down into two other kinds of individual policies. The first is what is called a guaranteed standard issue policy. This is the kind of policy that I should have gotten when I went through my process. And this kind of policy is only available during training and for a very short period thereafter. You're going to hear me mention that a couple of times because this is one of the reasons it is fundamentally important to get disability insurance while you're in training. If you don't take care of this until you're out of training and you become an attending physician, the guaranteed standard issue policy may no longer be available to you. It is only available during training and for a very short period after. I get emails all the time where people are like, hey, Jimmy, I've got type 1 diabetes or a cancer diagnosis or some other medical problem that would prevent them from getting disability insurance. What do I do? And I say, well, you're out of training and the GSI is no longer available. You're not insurable. So this is why it's really, really important to knock this off while you're in training. The other kind of policy is a fully underwritten policy. As I've explained, this is the one that looks into your full medical history. That is why it's called fully underwritten. Both of these, the GSI and the fully underwritten policies, are type of individual policies. They are the ones that you want and that you need to supplement that group policy that you have at your employer. Now, the GSI is the one that I should have applied for, and this is because it requires that minimal history to be taken, which essentially makes sure that you haven't been disabled before and that you've always been able to perform your activities of daily living. This GSI is still an own occupation policy. It is still individually owned by you, and it is a great policy to have. Some potential downside, it's only available in training, as I've mentioned, and it doesn't provide all the bells and whistles a fully underwritten policy might have, like unlimited coverage for psychiatric conditions, for example. These are some of the things to consider that are potential drawbacks to a GSI plan. Which brings us to the other kind, the individual policy. It's fully underwritten, and these policies are more customizable because of that, and they can sometimes offer a higher maximum benefit than a GSI plan. So if you're in a high earning specialty, these plans are going to cover a higher benefit, what you would take home should you become disabled, and that is important to consider. The major drawback on this one is what we've talked about before. It requires a full medical history to be taken, and if you apply with most companies, a denial will prevent you from ever getting disability insurance because once you're denied, you can't get the GSI. This is what happened to me, and this is why we created the process we utilize at Money Meets Medicine Disability Insurance to make sure that what happened to me doesn't happen to you. I'm just going to jump right in. So this is the exact process that we use here at Money Meets Medicine. And the first step in this process is to determine if you have a significant past medical history. If you aren't sure whether your history is significant or not, we're happy to help you figure that out at Money Meets Medicine. Otherwise, if you do have a past medical history that's significant, you should just go directly to a GSI. That's the first step, right? You have a past medical history, you know it's significant, just go ahead and pursue that GSI plan. If you don't have a significant past medical history, that's when it's wise to pursue a potentially less expensive and more customizable fully underwritten policy. Now, some of the items you might consider customizing with that fully underwritten policy are things like an increase option of some kind that you want to place on that policy. These increase options allow you to get smaller amount of coverage when you're in training, which makes it more affordable. Your income is limited when you're in training for most of us. But then when you finish, you can increase your coverage because you're now an attending physician and you make more money. And so you need a larger amount of benefit, what you would be paid each month if you got disabled. And this would allow you to do that without going through the whole process over again. So you want to talk about a potential increase option. There are different kinds of names for that that might be available to you in this fully customizable package. You might also consider getting a rider placed on your policy that will continue to pay you once you become disabled until you get back up to speed, right? If you get disabled, you can imagine you're not going to go from being disabled to back to full-time clinic and procedures or whatever your specialty might be, 1 FTE the next day. So a disability policy that includes a residual or partial disability rider is something to talk about with your agent. And you might want to add something like a cost of living adjustment, which basically means that what you get paid each month goes up each year so that inflation doesn't erode what you're taking home. In other words, what you buy today is what you'll be able to buy 20 years from now if you're still disabled, because that cost of living adjustment increases things with inflation. These are just some of the riders you might consider talking to your insurance agent about, but fully customizable plans allow you to add these. GSI plans, they are built the way that they are. They're boilerplate in nature. Everyone at that institution that gets the same GSI has the same exact plan. This is why a fully customizable plan may be the best solution for those that don't have a medical history. Once you go through the process, one of two things will happen with a fully underwritten policy. You're either going to be completely approved, or you'll get an exclusion for things in your history, or like what happened to me, you could get completely denied. So in this situation, what should you do? Well, if you get denied and you're watching this video, there's a good chance you have a Guardian GSI policy at your program. And one of my favorite features of the Guardian GSI specifically is that even if you apply for a Guardian fully underwritten policy and you get denied or you have an exclusion placed on you, you can still get the Guardian GSI. So long as you apply for the Guardian fully underwritten policy, you can still get the Guardian GSI, even if you get denied. Now, most insurance companies don't do this. If you get denied for most companies applying for a fully underwritten policy, they will not let you get the GSI thereafter. This is what happened to me. Now, this is really, really unique because a Guardian, so long as you apply for a Guardian fully underwritten policy, you can't apply somewhere else. But if you apply for a Guardian fully underwritten policy, even if you get denied, you can still get that GSI if you're in training. This is truly unique, and one of the reasons we are such big fans of Guardian plans for those that have them available in training at Money Meets Medicine. Now, assuming you're approved for that fully underwritten policy, you'd want to make sure that your coverage amounts to your take-home pay. That's the entire point of disability insurance, right? To make sure that you're whole, that your lifestyle doesn't have to change if you get disabled. Now, if it doesn't, then you need to buy more disability insurance. Plain and simple. Go back, add up your group coverage, your individual coverage. You combine those two things, it should equal your take-home pay. If it doesn't, you need more insurance. If it does, congratulations, you now have enough coverage so that even if you got disabled, your lifestyle will not change, and that's ultimately the goal, right? The only other big step along the way is to make sure that you increase your coverage once you're out of training. We explained this before, but this makes sense that you should need more coverage when you have a higher income. It is going to be more expensive, which is why you don't buy it from the beginning. You also wouldn't qualify for it, but this makes sure that the coverage you have still covers what you take home each month as an attending physician because you've now increased your coverage through one of those increase options that I mentioned before. All right, that's it. That's the process that we created at Money Meets Medicine to make sure that you take care of the #1 financial task for you as a physician without making a catastrophic financial mistake like I did. So don't put this on the back burner. It is something that is absolutely crucial to take care of while you're in training, because once you leave training, that GSI is no longer available. So get a true own occupation disability insurance policy. If you have any medical history, apply for a Guardian GSI. If you don't have any medical history, pursue a Guardian fully underwritten policy. Even if you get excluded, even if you get denied, you'll still have access to the GSI so long as you do it both through Guardian. Thanks for checking out this video and sharing it with friends. Now, go get started getting your disability insurance.